This is the praying moment. Do a little behind the scenes maneuvering.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot. That didn't look like it worked. All right. Michelle threw this monkey wrench in by asking if I could post to both of them.
Yeah. I saw that.
I wished I would have just said I'm like.
If you can't, you just don't, because that's how it is.
It might just have to wait till we're actually live.
Possible.
Oof. Yeah. Let me see if the women angler one. Yeah, okay, that one didn't do it either. Okay, so may just have to actually once we go live. Oops.
$6.27. No pressure.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. I don't particularly like the StreamYard stuff, but I don't.
It's good, but it's like not. Definitely not intuitive, I will say that. Like I had to learn my little, this is how you do it.
You had to learn the tricks.
Okay, I'm gonna go off. Or I'll wait. I have them at least both pulled up to the right pages. And hopefully you'll just see a comment from me like, we're good.
And that means start.
No, you'll already started. You'll just start talking. At 6:30, you're going to start talking.
Okay.
So it goes live instantly.
Okay. So don't wait for that. Don't wait for the you're good.
Correct.
Just start. Okay. I'm going to turn, my son left his phone in here and it keeps going off. I'm going to fix that quick.
Uh-oh.
6:29.
Why is it not connected to that one? Oh, shoot. That's what I tried to do too. I guess we'll find out and I'll tell you know if we're having trouble streaming.
Do I just continue on with the presentation though?
Well, you might have to just start over, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jean Clark. I'm the co-education director of the Women Anglers of Minnesota, and I just want to welcome you for being here and coming tonight. We've been asked to work with Mom's Fishing Challenge to do this presentation. As you know, or maybe you don't know, but Melissa Wagner did a presentation on trout on Wednesday night, or Tuesday, I guess, and I am doing the presentation on Fishing 101. And this is, I'm going to cover the basics of fishing. I'll go over some rods and reels and line. We'll talk about a couple of different jigs. And then at the end, I'm going to talk to you about places you might find some shore fishing access. Going to assume that many of you are new to fishing and are just learning. So that's what this presentation will be focused on. As we get started, I just want to let you know that as a member of WHAM, we are going to be giving away 2 memberships, 2 one-year memberships, good for a year after the end of tonight's presentation. And really, in order to get entered into that drawing, you just need to make a comment or something like that. I will try to get to all of the comments as best I can or questions that you might have. And we'll draw at the end, like I said. So we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, my name is Jean Clark, and this is the Fishing 101 Beginner's Guide for Open Water. We're going to provide you with some basic understanding of equipment, gear, rods and reel selection, lines, basic lures, and examples of what I use. Now, before we get started, I do just want to say that fishing is so diverse. Like there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing. And so I just want to be sure that everybody knows that some of what is included in tonight's presentation is really what I do or what I like best, but there's lots of ways to catch a fish. And so I'm going to be focusing on the basics of shore fishing. Hopefully you guys will take away something tonight that you find useful. So first, we're going to talk about gear that you really need to have, you must have. These are things that you really shouldn't be fishing if you don't have these basic things. So obviously a fishing license. And as most of you, or at least I hope you know, that this weekend you are able to fish for free without having a license on Mother's Day. But if you fish any other day, you must have a fishing license. You need a rod and a reel, some kind of tackle, and a bag or a box to carry that in. You need a scissors to cut line, and a pliers is always a good idea to help get hooks out of the fish's mouth, or sometimes just other very handy things. You need bait, or sometimes we use plastics. You'll need a life jacket if you're in the boat, appropriate clothing, a cell phone or GPS. And this is lots of times you need that to find where you are fishing. Or if you're in a boat, you need a cell phone or a GPS to kind of track where you've gone so that you can find your way back. You need water, and then you need appropriate sunscreen or sun protection clothes. Lots of times people go fishing and they just get pretty burned up. The gear that's nice to have, or you don't really need to have it, but it makes your life better. A boat, a kayak, or a public access to fish. And it's really nice if you have that picked out before you head out for the day. Rain gear if it's going to rain, or cold gear if it's going to be chilly. A fish finder is really nice if you're in a boat or a kayak. Rod holders are nice if you're shore fishing, and they make a couple of different styles of those. A net is not necessary, but if you're fishing off of a pier that's high, you really do need a net because otherwise, as you pull the fish up from the water, the hook has a strong potential to tear out of the fish's mouth, and that's never any good. A cooler for snacks and drinks, a bucket or a stringer if you're going to be keeping your fish, a bait cooler if you're bringing worms or minnows, a knife or a cutting board, again, if you're going to be keeping your fish, a wagon or some way to carry all of your stuff when you're shore fishing. It's nice to have polarized glasses so you can see a little bit into the water. Bug spray is always a good thing, and a first aid kit because accidents, they happen. And so next we're going to talk about how do you pick a rod. And really, you need to ask yourself a couple of different questions. What are you fishing for? There's a different rod you need when you're fishing for panfish or perch versus when you're fishing for walleye or bass. You would use a different size rod. How are you fishing? Are you going to be casting or trolling? Are you going to just throw it out and let it sit on the bottom or with a bobber? Are you going to be fishing from the shore or the boat? And what type of bait will you be using? Is it small bait? Is it heavy bait? Is it live bait? All of that kind of stuff can influence what rod you pick out and choose to bring. So there's a couple of different kinds of rods. The basics for that is that there's fiberglass versus graphite. Fiberglass are pretty tough. They're flexible. They're less expensive. Oftentimes you can find these in two-piece rods or treble rods. They're probably the majority that you see, like if you walked into a sporting goods store and was looking to pick out a fishing pole. They also make graphite rods. These are lighter, a little bit more stiff or more sensitive, but they're also a little bit more fragile. And with that comes a mix of a hybrid or composite, and these are graphite or other carbon polymers. And those, of course, the graphite and the hybrid composite are the more expensive rods as far as price goes. And then there are spinning rods and casting rods. And so for spinning rods, it's kind of the one that most people are familiar with. The reel sits below the rod. It has a reel that spins and the eyelets are on the bottom. So the line pulls the eyelets down when you catch a fish. And when you have a casting rod, it's also called a bait caster or a spin cast. And the rod sits above the reel sits above the rod on the top, and the eyelets are on top of the rod, or so the line pulls the rod down when you catch a fish. These are some examples of different reels, some reels basics. The first one, the blue one that you see there, is a spinning reel. It's called an open face. And the line is wound horizontally, and it's mounted on the bottom of your rod. The red one is called a bait cast or a bait caster. That is closed faced. The line is wound vertically, and it's mounted on the top of the rod. And then the bottom one there is a spin caster. These are closed face. The line is wound horizontally, and it's also mounted on top of the rod. A lot of kids grow up using these spin cast reels because they're really pretty simple for kids to use. And a lot of folks, even as adults, like them too. So how do you pick a rod length? Shorter rods are typically easier to use. You can cast them with a bit more accuracy. They're better if you're fishing on streams or in vegetation areas. And they also are better if you're in a small boat like a kayak. Those longer rods are more difficult to use, but they can cast farther. They give you more leverage for your hook set and also more leverage to pull the fish out of water, so out of the cover. So if you catch a bass or a pike or something that's in the weeds, the longer rod gives you the advantage to get the fish out of the weeds. So what does rod power mean? Well, the amount of pressure that's needed to bend the rod at its action rating. So these are the ones that we have here. There's ultralight, light, medium, medium heavy, and heavy. And this also correlates to the line and the lure size. And so you can see there with my diagram of fish that a heavy rod and a medium rod and a light rod all are kind of correlate to the size of the fish. You might have heard of rod action, and this really just means how much pressure does it take to bend the rod. And so we have basically 3 categories: fast, moderate, and slow. So fast rods are very sensitive. They load really quickly. When a fish bites, you feel it right away. And it's really good for live bait or jigging, like if you were to jig for walleyes over the side of a boat or over the edge of a dock. You feel the bite right away, so it's good for that. Moderate pulls are less sensitive, but you can cast farther. And so you kind of sacrifice the sensitivity to be able to get out on the water farther. We use those moderate actions for larger lures, crankbaits, or spinner baits, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the slow rod action is for longer casting. We use this for small lures, panfish, and really light line. So what if the rod only says one thing? It's safe to assume that the rating is describing the power. So if it says it's a medium action, it's likely a medium power fast action. If it says it's a light action, it's most likely a light power slow action. And just a couple examples of rod power action. A light extra fast action would be good for panfish. It's very lightweight and responsive to that light bite. A medium or a medium light fast action is good for walleye jigging. It's sturdy and very responsive, so you feel that right away. And a medium heavy has a fast moderate action, and that's sturdy and flexible, and that's really good for bass when you're casting repeatedly those lures to catch the bass. So the real basics of the different types. The spinning reel is open face, like we talked about. It's versatile and it's easy to use. When you open this, you open your bail, and you would put your finger on the line and cast it. As you cast, you let go of the line and it just kind of zooms out there. The bait caster is closed faced. That one has really accurate precision casting. It is more difficult to use. It takes a little bit more coordination. You basically push your thumb down on the reel to open the bail or the line. And as you cast out, you let go of your thumb. Sometimes what happens on the bait casting reel is that line gets all balled up and kind of makes a big mess, like a bird's nest, we call it. And then you have to stop what you're doing and fix that before you continue to fish. If you continue to fish when your reel has a bird's nest, you will probably break it. So I would just highly recommend, if that happens to you, that you stop fishing and you fix it right away so that you don't destroy your gear. The spin cast is a closed face system. It uses a button. It's really easy to use. You lack precision and casting, but the value of that is that it's super easy and it's really pretty hard to break. That's why we give it to kids. Out of all of these, my favorite rod and reel setup for walleye or pike, I like the medium. Some people like a medium light. I prefer the medium because oftentimes when I am fishing for walleyes, I might catch something else as well. Walleye, pike, bass, they all kind of live together in the same areas. And so if I'm fishing for walleye, I want to be prepared to also be able to land a pike. And so I like the medium rods. And I also typically like the spinning reels, the open face spinning reels. I do have some bait casters that I use for bigger fish when I'm targeting like just muskie, pike, or salmon. But every day, kick around, going fishing, I like the spinning reel with a medium rod. Here we're going to talk just a little bit about reel sizes. When you look at your reel, it's going to have a number. And over here on the left, you can see there's like a 2000 or a 20, a 2500, a 3000, 3500, 400, 4000. That all relates to how much weight or how big of a fish that reel can handle. And so the 2000 series is really recommended for panfish or smaller bass. The light, ultralight, medium light is really where you want it to be. If you put a heavier reel on a smaller rod, it's unbalanced and it's difficult to fish with. And so you really want to be able to match your reel and your rod together. If you're going shopping for a new rod and you're looking at purchasing something, really it's going to be best to talk to the sales associate to make sure that you get something that matches up. The 2500 and the 3000 series are all really for bass, pike, and walleye. And it's really just depending on your comfort and what you like. I personally like the 3000 series best. It can handle a bass or a walleye, and it can also handle some larger size pike. I wouldn't recommend targeting pike with that size of a reel, but if you accidentally catch one, you might probably be able to land it with good faith. And then we talk about the bigger 4000 series, and that really is for your big pike, your muskie, your catfish. I use the 4000 series when I go salmon fishing. They're bigger, they're heavier, they're sturdier, and it's really made to catch a bigger fish. When you do decide to purchase your rod and reel, be sure that you put the reel on the rod in the store and kind of hold it on your finger like this and just balance it right in front of the reel on the rod. And it should balance there without falling one way or the other. And so if it doesn't, you might want to question it and see if possibly you might have the wrong size reel on the rod, because it should balance there if it's weighted correctly. But again, I would just encourage you to ask your retailer for assistance with that. And everybody is super happy to help. The next thing I want to talk about real quickly is drag. Drag is basically a pair of friction plates inside the fishing reel. They can be felt or carbon. So if a fish pulls on your line hard enough, the friction is overcome and the reel lets line out, preventing the line from breaking. And you want this to be turned on, or you want this to be tuned. So lots of times when you have your rod and your reel set up, you'll see people pull on the line a little bit to see how it comes out, and they pull on it, and if it's really easy for it to come out and it just kind of slides right off, your drag is too loose. And so if you were to catch a fish with it like that, it would just pull your line out. You'd never be able to reel it up. It would be quite difficult. So you want to tighten the drag. And on the end of this reel, you can see on the very tip on the right, you can see that there's this little knob, I suppose you might call it. And you just turn that knob to the right, and that tightens your drag. And so you want to tighten that down until you can pull on the line and have some resistance, have it pulling against you, but you want it to allow the line to come out so that when you get a bigger fish or when you get a fish on your line, it doesn't break. You'll also notice on your reels that there's ball bearings and gear ratio. This can be very complicated. I'm not going to go too far into it here. Basically, what's important to know is that those ball bearings reduce friction and create a smoother reel. And so a higher number for your ball bearings is always better. And the quality of the ball bearings also matters. And so I typically like something that has at least 5 or 7 ball bearings just to make for smooth casting and reeling. And the gear ratio just means that the number of times that the spool turns per the turn of the handle. So sometimes you crank the handle one time, but your spool might wrap up 5 times. And so that's a delicate balance. And of course, the higher the ball bearings and the higher the gear ratio, also the higher the price. And so you really don't need anything super expensive or fancy. You don't need to be spending hundreds of dollars to get anything, a basic setup, but you do want to have something that's decent and isn't going to leave you with broken gear after the first or second time. Line selection can be a little challenging sometimes as well. There's pros and cons. We basically have monofilament or fluorocarbon. You can look through the different fluctuations in that. Monofilament is low density and it floats in water. It stretches, it absorbs water. It typically has low visibility in the water. When it says it has low memory, what that means is that it doesn't get spun around the reel and then keep that twisted line. It tends to stretch out. Monofilament has a shorter lifespan and it's also inexpensive, relatively inexpensive. Fluorocarbon has a high memory, meaning it will be, I like to call it kinky. It's like it's always curled up and it's sometimes hard to deal with. It has a high density, it sinks in water, it's strong versus its diameter. It does have less stretch. It's hard to see in the water. It has no color. It has a super long lifespan, but it's also more expensive. Most people use monofilament, and depending what you're fishing for, it's probably somewhere between 4 pounds and 8 pounds, depending on what you're fishing for. So by that, I mean the line selection, what to choose. So you want to match the line to the rod. Each rod will have the pound test that you should have on it. It will say that right on the butt of your fishing rod. So you use lighter line for those ultralight and light rods and use heavier line for those medium to medium heavies. We didn't talk about braid, but braid is the spool here on the far right. And that's basically, it's not monofilament and it's not a fluorocarbon. It's almost like thread. I would call it. It's very similar to thread that you might use for sewing. It doesn't stretch at all. It's very hard to break. It can be relatively inexpensive. But some people like to use braid for jigging because it's more sensitive and it has a lot of strength in the weeds. Monofilament is all purpose. People use it for rigging and trolling. And fluorocarbon, people will use that for bass fishing or making leaders out of, which just means it's a line at the end of your it's an additional line at the end of your fishing line that creates, it's usually a couple, 12 to 16 inches long, and you tie your lure to the end of it. Next, we'll talk about jigs. We have lead jigs or tungsten jigs. Lead jigs are the most common metal for jigs. They come in multiple sizes and shapes. Tungsten jigs are 30% heavier than lead. They're often heavier and have a smaller profile, and heavier means that they fall faster, which means that they get you down to where the fish are quicker. Tungsten is also much better for the environment. If you lose your jig, if you lose a tungsten jig, it doesn't really hurt anything, whereas lead can sometimes hurt the animals that might eat it. There's multiple jig styles for all types of fishing, and the shape affects how the jig travels through the water. You can see on the right side there, I have many different examples of jigs. They come in different shapes and sizes. It's really personal preference, what you like. The long shank on this yellow one here in the middle, it has a longer hook, and that's good for plastics. If you're going to use like those plastic minnows or plastic bait. It can also be used for live bait depending on the presentation, meaning if you wanted to use a worm or a leech, those longer shanks are good for that. And the short shank really just means it has a short hook. And that can also be used for plastic or live bait, depending on how you want to present. But typically the short shanks are good for fish who have a larger mouth, like crappies who have a really wide mouth, or sometimes walleyes. A lot of this really comes down to personal preference. Sometimes it comes down to how much you want to spend, because some of these are cheaper than others. And the hooks come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. It's almost like a jewelry store sometimes. So the jig size, jigs come in different sizes. They're by weight, number, and hook size. It's good to really buy a variety, have a couple of different sizes, at least some small and medium size. I always recommend that people start with a larger jig, and then if you're not getting bites, you're not catching fish, get smaller and smaller as the day goes on. You want to make sure that you don't get a jig that's too big for your pole, because otherwise it will overload your pole and you won't be able to fish with it correctly. Here's an example of a different lures that you might find in a store. The spinner bait is typically used for bass, and it's good for going through weeds. These spoons, they have vertical spoons and they have casting spoons, and those you can use in a boat, you can use from shore, you can use these from a dock or a pier. The jigging minnow, you'll see it has the hook, the line goes in the hole on the back of that, and it really has a vertical presentation. It's not meant to be casted. And so it's really for like putting over the side of the boat, and you just pull it up and down like this, or a dock or a pier or something like that. These spinners over here on the far right, they're similar to a spinner bait. You would cast them the same way, where you cast it out and retrieve it back with the reel. And these ones on the bottom, the crawler harness and the leech and minnow harness, these are meant to be trolled in a boat. And this stinger hook, this is interesting because a stinger hook goes on the bottom of another hook, and it creates like a tail, so that if sometimes the fish don't take your whole bait, sometimes they just do a little short bite. And if they do a little short bite and you have a stinger hook on, you most likely will have a better chance of hooking up with them. Does color matter, or is that also a preference? Well, color can matter. But lots of times it's dependent on the lake that you're fishing or the day, the weather that you're fishing. So if it's a bright blue sky and high sunshine, you're going to use a different color than if it was a stormy, cloudy day. Also, if you have a dark stained river type water versus a really clear lake, you're going to use different colors as well. And some lakes are just known for colors. I know, like up at Lake of the Woods, if anybody ever fishes up there, up at Lake of the Woods, a big color up there is this hot pink. Why, I don't know. And gold is really popular up there too. If you go into a bait shop in that area, almost everything has some sort of gold on it. So area lakes can be known for certain specific colors too. There's a few lakes that I fish that I swear every fish wants something that's purple. So trial and error. It's probably good to get a couple of a little bit of everything. One thing that's really popular, if you don't know what to get and you want to get something that's going to give you a good shot at catching, white. You can always go for white. It's good in dirty water. It's good in stained water. It's good in a bright sunny day. It's good on a cloudy day. White is always good. So if you were going to get one thing, that's what I would get, white. These are some swim baits. These are called swim baits. They basically mimic a minnow. Some of them mimic leeches or other different critters like crayfish or crawdads, that type of thing. You hook these on the front of the nose on this. There's typically a little hook that your line goes through. You tie that on and then you cast and retrieve this. And these are a couple of different other lures. We call these crankbaits. Again, you throw them out and you reel them back. Some of these can also be trolled behind a boat if you're doing that type of thing. How deep something dives depends on the bill of the fish. And so some of these are made to go very deep, like 5 to 9 or 10 feet. And some of these are made to be shallow. And some of these are made to be top water. The one in the bottom right-hand corner, the silver one with the red tail, that's a top water. It's going to just go right along the top and you'll probably see it. And that's really fun because you also see the fish jump up out of the water and bite it. So that's pretty cool. These lipless ones that's next to that one, those go really deep. Believe it or not, those can really get down there. And so if you're looking at trying to catch something that's in deep water, that's a good selection. My favorite of all these are the square bills. I don't know why I like them. I just do. I catch a lot of fish on those. It seems like everything likes a square bill. And they're just, it's just a good all around. If you had to have one thing, I would pick that. Everybody's got something different though. Here's where I was talking a little bit about the color. You need to consider the water clarity and then the conditions. Is it sunrise? Is it sunset? Is it night? Is it dark? Is it cloudy? Is it sunny? So those silver and gold lures, those work best on the sunny day. I think there's a saying out there that goes sun's out, gold's out. It's an easy way to remember it. It just reflects more of the light that's coming through the water. And they're also kind of become invisible if it's a cloudy day. And so sunny is definitely better. Cloudy days, the UV light is a little bit stronger on cloudy days. And so a fluorescent lure or something that's bright colored is going to serve you better. And this is where we get into the colors of the blues, the greens, the pinks, that type of thing. But again, if you don't know, go for something pretty generic. You can always go for something that looks just like a minnow or a leech or something white. Looks like we have a question here. Do you crimp the barbs down on hooks or keep them? Nope, I keep my barbs. I do not crimp them down. Some places are not allowed to use those barbs. I don't think that's anywhere in Minnesota though, but I can ask my friend Melissa if that's correct. Yep, she says that's correct. There's nowhere in Minnesota that does not allow barbs. Typically, when you see people crimping the barbs, that is typical for trout. And in Minnesota, like she said, that those are allowed here. So what do the fish see? This is what a fish would look like on a cloudy day or from the top, or in 10 feet versus 70 feet. These are the same lures in each picture there, that just depending on if it's a cloudy day in 10 feet of water or top water in 70 feet of water. So I always say divide and conquer. If you're fishing with somebody, don't everybody do the same thing. Spread out your color selection, your jig size, your type, what you're doing. Have one person casting, have one person with a bobber, have one person throwing a spinner bait, and see what's working and see what's attracting the more bites. The person who starts catching fish, then everybody switch over and do that. It's a good way to try to figure out what the fish want. Here we're going to talk about knots just a little bit. I would definitely recommend the improved clinch knot improved clinch knot or the Palomar knot can be your basic fishing knots. Really, unless you're doing something that's out there, these will get you through just about any type of knot that you need to tie. These work on jigs, on crankbaits, on just a plain hook. They work on spinner baits, absolutely anything that you need. So I would jot these names down. I give directions here on how to do it, but until you actually do it a couple of times, it's a little cumbersome. And YouTube has some really good instructional videos where you can just go in and watch the video and they walk you through it in slow motion with colored line, so you can really see the movement on how to make these knots. They are pretty easy. They're not complicated at all, and you should practice a couple of times at home before you head out and go fishing. One thing that can sometimes complicate tying your knots is the wind and just being outside. And so you might be able to do it really good at home in your house, and then you get out there with a 20-mile-an-hour wind and it's difficult. So be sure that you practice your knots and just get comfortable using them. You might find that you like one over the other, and as you get more experience and more fish more, you're going to want to learn other knots as well. And there's whole YouTube videos on that. I would just recommend that you go ahead and start with these though. Talk a little bit about bobbers. We have slip bobbers and rocket bobbers. Slip bobbers, you can use a small or a large jig. You can go on a variety of depths. You do need a bobber stop and a bobber bead. And the bobber basically goes down when the fish bites the hook. Then you know you have something, and you jerk up on your rod. That's called setting the hook, and then you reel your fish in. A rocket bobber attaches to the line. It's for shallow or when you're trying shallow water, when you're trying to cast really far, and it lays on its side in the water. And then when you get a fish on your hook, the bobber will be laying like this. When you get a fish, it stands up. That means you have a fish. Whereas the slip bobber stands up, and when you get a fish, it goes down. So it really is personal preference. They also make weighted bobbers, which can help you cast farther. Some people like the rocket bobbers because you can cast pretty far with them. They're weighted, they're a little bit heavier, and you don't have to take your pole, your hook and stuff apart in order to put it on. It just clips onto the line. Whereas the slip bobber, you have to feed the line through the center of the bobber, so it goes in the top and comes out the bottom, which also means that you have to like cut your hook and any tackle that you have on the end of your line, you have to cut that off to put your bobber on. So some people tend to like the rocket bobber because you don't have to do that. My personal preference is the slip bobber because I just think they work better, and that's what I grew up with, so that's what I know. But both of these are fairly inexpensive, maybe $1, $2 a piece. So try different sizes, try different styles, and figure out what it is you like best. These are some of my favorite jigs. I like the Northland Fireball jig and the Gumball. These are kind of my go-to. If I had to pick any one thing, that's what I would fish with. You can put plastics on there. Excuse me. You can put live bait on there. You can put a big old hunk of worm on there. It's just all around good lure. I like the Slow Death rig if I'm going to be trolling or fishing for walleyes. These attach to the end of the line and you just troll with them. They're flashy, they're fun. Fish tend to like them. Those you do need to typically be moving those, so they're not real good for shore fishing. The Husky jerk baits, the Purple Clown is a favorite of mine. As you can see, it's got a purple top and a white belly. Those are always really good, no matter where you're fishing or what you're fishing for. Those always are typically good. And then the good old bobber. And like I said, my favorite is the slip bobber. You use a slip bobber setup, put on a worm, cast it out into your water, and just wait for a bite. And typically you'll get something. Live bait or plastic bait, they can be equally successful. It really depends on what the fish want, and it can change from day to day, hour to hour. Sometimes fish want worms, sometimes they want minnows, sometimes they want leeches. It's nice to have a variety, and sometimes you can't bring all of that bait with you when you're fishing, and so that's why we have plastics, and the plastics tend to mimic the live bait. And so you can see on that slide on the far right, that's how some of these plastics can be set up with live bait. Or some people don't use live bait at all. They just use plastics and it works for them. I kind of like a combination of the two. But there are times when plastic is my go-to, and that's what I'm going to do. So it's really a preference of what the fish wants. It's also a preference of what you can manage. If you don't have a cooler or a way to keep your bait cold or keep your minnows in water, it's going to be really hard for you to fish with minnows or worms or leeches. And so then you might want to go to some plastics that look like that. And there's a couple different brands out there that, I mean, you can get fake worms, you can get fake leeches, you can get fake minnows, and they work really well. So if you don't have all of the stuff to transport and keep your live bait happy and healthy, just use some plastics. They work really well. And then you always hear about match the hatch, and that just means that you try to match what it is that the fish are going to be eating. So we have a variety of minnows and leeches and crawfish and things like that. If you can match the hatch, so that if you know that fish are eating minnows and you have the exact kind of minnow that they want, you will probably have a very successful day fishing. Here's a couple of different hook options that I wanted to throw in. I have been fishing a good majority of my life, probably since I was 2. And I only knew one way to hook a minnow, and that was the way I was taught as a kid. And that's that first one, which is through the front lips. And since I've joined WHAM and gotten more experience with fishing, I've learned that you can back hook, you can tail hook, and you can even do another one that I don't have here, where it kind of goes through the mouth and out the back top of the head, which actually sounds kind of gross, but it's really good if you're casting far. That minnow doesn't come off your hook at all. So I just wanted to mention that because I didn't know that until I was about 40 years old. Leeches and crawlers, here's a couple of different ways that you can hook them. Leeches, the best way really is to just find the sucker on the leech, and you want the hook to go through the sucker. You don't want to hook the leech on the tail. And then crawlers, I have a couple examples here of how to put a crawler on a hook. The other way that people do this is to just wrap the crawler on the hook like a big old gob of night crawler. And there's no right or wrong. You do what you think works best. And so I gave you lots of information. We talked about a lot of different things. I hope you learned something here tonight. But more so, like, now what, right? So how do you find a place to fish? And that can be intimidating to some people. But also, there's a lot of resources out there that I'd like to share with you here tonight. So first, I'm going to go through a couple of different places. Most of these are in the metro that you can find to fish. The Mississippi Gateway Regional Park, there you're going to find a pier, a shore, and bridge fishing. And it's right on the Mississippi. You have a chance to catch just about anything. It's got an accessible trail, so you can bring wagons and strollers or wheelchairs. And it leads right down to the landing on the river. There's also 2 big bridges that you can go on, and there's a pond. And so it really is a quite diverse place to fish. There's an accessible platform by the dam that you can fish from also. And you can go here. You could spend the whole day here and just enjoy the day fishing pretty easily. The next one is the landing in Shakopee. This is strictly shore fishing, and it's on the Minnesota River. There are some steep banks here, which can be good because at the bottom of the steep bank is great big holes. Fish tend to want to be in deep water at the edge, or there's also some sand flats that you could cast a line in. I mentioned that there's steep banks because it's not really a good place for kids. If you got little kids that are running around, I wouldn't go here. But older kids, or if it's just you and your husband going out, or you and a friend, and you have the physical ability to manage the steeper bank, it's a good place to get some fishing. But like I said, little kids running around, I would stay clear of this one. Lake Rebecca Park Reserve, here they have piers and shores. There's a canoe landing, it's on the Croix River, and there's also piers on Lake Rebecca. And fewer people will fish the Croix River than the Minnesota or the Mississippi. So there's chances that you're gonna have a little privacy or be alone. This place is not real busy most of the time. Just remember this area of the river is also very common for people to be canoeing or kayaking. So if somebody is canoeing or kayaking coming by you, if you're fishing here, be sure that you reel your line up and let them go past. You don't want to have a big conundrum while you're fishing. Lake Rebecca is pretty quiet. It has 2 dedicated fishing piers as well as a lagoon, and that's really good for early fishing season. And this is also a really good place for kids. And then Twin Lakes boat access. This is pier fishing. It's the highlight of the Twin Lakes boat access. It's a beautiful fishing pier. It's fairly new. It's located about a half a mile north of the boat launch on a bike trail. So just find the boat launch, head up the bike trail, and It also has like cutouts in the pier that you can put your rod in, so you don't have to hold it the whole time. This is a really good place for wagons, strollers, people with mobility devices, that type of thing. And then last, we'll talk about Silverwood Park. It's a pier, a shore fishing access, and a bridge. And you can catch sunfish, crappies, perch, bass, carp. My gosh, probably just about anything here. Everything is biting. I can't say all the time, but it's a good chance you'll get something. And the next thing I wanted to talk about, for those of you who aren't in the Twin Cities or metro area, sometimes it's hard to find public water accesses or how to do that. But the DNR has really made it easy for us. This link is not clickable, meaning it won't take me to where we want to go. But if you Google Minnesota DNR shore fishing, you will get this link. And from there, you'll be given a list of all the counties in Minnesota that have fishing access. It will show you the boat launches, canoe accesses, shore fishing accesses. I think we just dropped this in the chat for those of you who want to look at it more detailed. But this is a really, really good resource. The DNR has done a really nice job on this, on mapping out all of the spots that we can go to fish. You can hone it down, like if I'm going to be traveling, say, to St. Cloud. I don't live there, but I'm going to go fishing there for the day or the weekend. I can go here. I can have all my spots picked out. Gives you a little information about it, how to get there, where the access is, meaning what's public property and where you're allowed to be. And so it's really a really, really good resource. And really that is about the end of my formal presentation. I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions that we haven't covered yet, or if you have anything that you would like me to talk about more, I'll be happy to answer your questions. You can just drop them in the chat and I will be happy to try. I'm just giving it a minute if anybody has anything. It looks like Melissa has done the drawing for our 2 WAM memberships, the Women Anglers of Minnesota. 2 lucky people will walk away with a year membership. And the winners are Amanda Jacobs and Abby Fuchs. So congratulations to you guys. I will be contacting our membership director with your names, and I will be in contact with you to help you get that membership going. Women Anglers of Minnesota, we're a nonprofit club that really focuses on getting women and children outdoors fishing. And so if fishing is something that you want to do and you want to learn more and you want to be involved with other women who have a love for fishing, it really is a good group of women. We do meetups, we do fun tournaments, we have get-togethers. It's really a great group that if you want some camaraderie and you want to learn more than what you learned tonight, it's a good place to go. Membership is fairly cheap, and it gets you some really good information. So that's all I have for tonight. If there aren't any more questions, I thank you for coming, and I hope I see you on the water.